up, y'all? Welcome back to the SelfCare Revolution podcast. Okay, this is the weekly reset, and if you're new here, stick around because we like to break down simple self-care habits that you can use today so that you can start feeling full instead of empty. Okay, stop showing up to places burnt out and overwhelmed. Okay, we're gonna put ourselves first. Now, I'm your host, Demita. And over here, we don't talk about fluff, right? We're not talking about spa days or anything like that. Now, spa days are necessary from time to time. However, that's not what self-care is, okay? We're talking about the basics of self-care that you can literally start today, all right? Now, if you were following us in September, then you know that we spent the whole month of September just showing up for just not really showing up for ourselves, but just noticing what was going on with ourselves. Okay, we're thinking about what is going on with our self-care every single day. All right, and now the reason why we did that was because self-care awareness month was September. Okay, now October, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So get down below and let me know if you are a survivor, or if you know somebody who is a survivor. Let me know that so we can shout them out and send them some positive vibes. Okay, but this month we're focusing on our self-care pillars, if you will. If you look at self-care like a chair, all right, with the four legs, we're gonna focus on one of those four legs every week in this month of October. And so far we've talked about physical self-care, we've talked about mental self-care, and today, this week, we're talking about spiritual self-care. Okay, now self-care is a buzzword. People have many different definitions or understandings, I'll say, of what they think self-care is. And self-care is just the basics, okay? Now, there's different pillars of self-care, and over here we focus on the mental, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual, because all four of those make up who you are, and they go into how you show up. Do you show up burnt out? Do you show up fully ready? You know what I'm saying? Like, nothing's perfect, but for instance, if you wake up in the morning and you roll out of bed and you're late for work and you just kind of do everything you need to get to work, you don't think about what you're going to eat or how hungry you're going to be later, you didn't get any water, you're not well rested, you didn't move your body or anything like that. When you get to work, you're going to be ready to serve them, but you're going to be totally depleted. You're going to be cranky because you're hungry. You're going to be figuring out, oh man, I can't wait till lunch or whatever. All that's a distraction, you know what I'm saying? So if you focus on yourself, everything else falls into place. And if it doesn't, when you get there, the experience will be much better than if you show up depleted. All right, that's the whole thing. All right, so welcome to the Self-Care Revolution podcast, because this is what I focus on every day. All right, I might have a full-time job. I might be a mother. I might be a sister. I might be a daughter. I might even be a dog parent, because I am. However, I come first because I can't show up for those people or those things if I don't take care of myself. So that includes me getting a good night's sleep, feeling good, making sure that I eat, right? And eating is an important thing because I am a habitual meal skipper. I'll get engrossed in something and I'll just, maybe I'm reading something, watching something, making something. I ain't thinking about eating. I'm thinking about eating, but I ain't thinking about eating. You know what I'm saying? And then time passes and now you're making a bad decision because now your stomach's rubbing your back. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about over here. And I'm not talking to you from a place of I'm doing this and you aren't, okay? I'm talking to you a place of I'm struggling with incorporating these things daily as well. Won't you come along and do it with me, okay? That's where we're at over here. Now, spiritual self-care is not about religion, all right? It is really not about religion. Now, depending on the person that you are, that will decide what kind of activities you do for spiritual self-care, but it's not about religion. Now, religious things could be a part of your spiritual self-care, habits, but that is a personal decision, okay? It's really about peace, purpose, and what keeps you steady. Like, how do you show up sane? How do you stay sane, right? That's where your spiritual self-care comes in at, okay? This is about the part of you that stays grounded when life gets messy, because life be lifing, all right? Life be lifing, all right? So we're gonna start out with a weekly reminder, like a weekly self-care tip. Your inner world sets the tone for everything else. All right, if your spirit is chaotic, then everything else is gonna be the same. Everything else is gonna feel harder. And even 5 minutes can shift the tone of your day. 5 minutes of quiet time can shift the tone of your day. All right. Like these things might seem mundane or not even mundane, but they might even seem meaningless to some people, but they're really not. Like every little bit counts. Every little bit counts. Now, what I want to do, what I like to do is I want to do a self-care roll call, and you can participate by answering in the chat, or you could just participate on your own, and you don't have to share the answers with us at all. But I want you to really take a moment to think about, are you really doing these things? Okay. Have you eaten anything real and nourishing? Okay. That means, plants, protein, how is your food looking this week? Okay. Have you hydrated? Are you drinking like drinks that are hydrating you, or are you drinking mostly caffeine and sugar? All right. Because once you know where you're at, then you can make those changes. Are you getting enough rest, or are you working on 3 hours of sleep and running off fumes? All right. Have you moved your body? Now, you might not have made it to the point where you're doing consistent workouts, but that's okay. You just need to focus on moving your body every day. It could be a dance break, it could be a stretch, it could be a walk. Okay. You have to start somewhere. So you need to ask yourself that as well. And then the other thing is, how's your prayer and reflection life looking? Okay. Whether you're a person who believes in prayer or not, reflection is definitely something that is rated E for everyone. All right. So with that being said, get your answers down below. Let us know, are you hitting the daily 5 or no? Because that's your first, that's where your first, your first inkling of, okay, these are the things that I could work on comes at. How you doing on that daily 5? All right. Now, since we're talking about spiritual self-care this week, we're going to define spiritual self-care, because I like to define things so that I can make sure that we're on the same page before we move on and talking about what to do about it. All right. Because you might have a different understanding than I do, and vice versa, and we won't be on the same page. All right. Okay. So when we're defining spiritual self-care, let's be clear that it's not about religion. Okay. We're not over here preaching. It's not about religion. It is about alignment. All right. It's about that part of you that people can't see. All right. The part that keeps you grounded when stuff starts going crazy. Like, how is that reflection part of your life? You know what I'm saying? What are you hopeful for or whatever? It's your connection to something bigger than yourself. All right. That's what spiritual self-care is. Okay, now I like to give examples as well, because when people say spiritual self-care, some people might think, prayer. Some people might think, meditation or whatever. Now, for me, prayer is a big one. I definitely start and end my day with prayer. And honestly, prayer is an all-day conversation. But hey, to each his own, all right? But prayer is definitely how I start and end my day. And then I also meditate. Now, I think they go hand in hand, because prayer is where you talk to God, right? And meditation is where you be quiet and you listen to see what's going on inside of you, etc., etc. All right, those are two examples of spiritual self-care. Now, there are a bunch of examples of spiritual self-care habits. All right, journaling is also one of them. Now, some of these habits fall into multiple categories, which I love, because the whole point is to focus on some point of self-care for yourself. Journaling counts as mental, and it counts as spiritual, because you are writing down your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and things like that. And that has to do with the part that nobody can see. Okay. So journaling is also an example of things you could do, for spiritual self-care. Now, another example are nature walks, right? You could go out, and I would recommend taking a walk with no phone, no headphones. Take a walk on your own, okay? See who you might meet, what you might see, what you might notice in the neighborhood that you never noticed before, okay? That is also spiritual self-care, all right? All of these things feed your spirit. That is the point. All of these things feed your spirit, okay? Now, I have an analogy that I like to kind of present when I'm talking about self-care, because it's a buzzword. Like I said, everybody might not have the same meaning, but I think that if we think of it in the sense of a garden, right? Think of your self-care like a garden. All right. Your mind is the soil. Everything grows from that. Okay. And your body is the plant. All right. That's where everything shows. How you take care of yourself shows up in your body, right? So then your spirit is the weather, the atmosphere in the garden. Okay. It shapes how everything grows, even if you don't see it. All right. And then your emotions. Your emotions is the gardener. That's the person, not even the person, but that is the thing that's going around tending to all of the things that are growing. Now, when the weather is peaceful, everything thrives, right? Everything thrives. That means that everything's getting the attention that it needs. But when the weather is chaotic, even the strong plants struggle, okay? The high winds and things like that, the strong plants also struggle. So we have to look at it as a garden and work on, tending to those different aspects of our self-care. Excuse my dog because he really loves to make himself heard when it's time for me to record. I don't know if any other pet parents are out there, but I have a Yorkie and he is crazy. Okay. Anyway, back to what we're talking about, because I want to give y'all some real tips on self-care and really kind of show y'all like how it affects real life and how these basic things really are everything that you need to know. Okay. But spiritual self-care impacts our real life in so many ways. Okay. Without it, you're going to be in reaction mode. Reaction mode is crazy because that means that you getting up and you're not even thinking about yourself. You're just going out to see what the world going to give you. And that's crazy, my friend. That's crazy. Okay. But with it, you start to trust yourself more because you know that, whatever happens, you've already taken care of you. You've already paid attention to you. Okay. You already move with a purpose. You're not just waiting for something to react to. All right. You see things with clarity versus a whole bunch of confusion. All right. And you're not disconnected. That's another thing. You're more connected to what it is that you're trying to do and get done if you're paying attention to your self-care. Okay. Now, it's really the difference between chaos and calm, even when the circumstances don't change. Okay. Like you may have a job that you don't like, but you going to work when you have tended to yourself gives you a better experience than if you just got up and just went to work and not thought about yourself. Okay. You're going to make different decisions. You're going to be in a different mind frame. And that's what it is. It's all about mindset. It's really all about mindset, which is another buzzword that we will talk about later. But this week we're talking about spiritual self-care. All right. Now, y'all know I like to talk about the daily 5, which is hydration, nourishment, movement, rest, and prayer. All right. Now, the spiritual, where that falls into spiritual, in the spiritual self-care is that when your body and mind are cared for, your spiritual self-care hits deeper. Drinking water, movement, and resting all help you to connect more deeply. All right. Now, I like to say now a lot, clearly, but think about it like this. I just had this situation this morning. I was engrossed in, planning for I want to get the podcast together. I'm getting my reels together for this week and all types of things. And I wasn't thinking about food. And then I said, you know what? Let me just fix something to eat so that in a couple of hours, I won't be sitting here with my stomach rubbing my back, making other decisions that are tearing me away from what I really want to do because I didn't plan well as far as the food. All right. So that was not a spiritual self-care habit, but it was still a self-care habit that I had to make myself do something so that I could be better in the in the future, like the future part of today. Hope that makes sense. Now, I did create a journal, okay, and it's called a self-care reflection journal. And the thing about it is when you take time to focus on your thoughts and how you feel, your energy, everything starts to shift. The self-care reflection journal has you to pause and ask yourself questions that we usually skip, okay? So definitely make sure you check that out. And if you have an issue with just incorporating self-care in your life daily because you don't know what to do or where to start, right? Or you think that it's some luxury thing, then I want you to download the free tracker at selfcaremattersdaily.com because that's going to give you a snapshot of things you could do to boost your energy, things you could do to stay grounded. You could even keep track of your water. You can keep track of how you felt when you woke up. Did you get enough rest? Keep track of what kind of meals you had, what your mood is like, and things like that. Because the data that you get from tracking those things lets you know what you need to work on more. All right, so download your free self-care tracker at selfcaremattersdaily.com and thank me later because even though I created it, I use that thing on a regular basis, okay? Because even though, like I said, I'm a pet mom, I'm a real human mom. I have a full-time job, and all these other things are competing for my priority, like are competing priorities for me. However, the number one priority is me. It's me. When I get up, the number one priority is me. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Oh well. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking I have no idea where to start, then you definitely need to start with the tracker. The tracker's free. So anyway, I'm going to see y'all in the next video. This has been your weekly reset. Okay, get down in the comments below. Share this with somebody who needs to be focused on their daily needs. Okay, because if you're not focused on your daily needs, how are you going to show up for these other people? And how are you going to be your best self? I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm your girl, Demita. I'll be here next week. I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.